evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore podcast, your Newcastle United podcast on the Evermore YouTube channel. I'm your host, Chris, and I'm joined by two of my three amigos this evening. One is stuck in traffic. Hopefully, he will be here very soon. I've got the man who's always in the 90th percentile, the stat man Marcus with me. And I've got the Lynch man who's been missing a couple of weeks, but thankfully, St. Maximin let him use some of the oxygen tank. He's breathed in some fresh air, and he's back with us tonight. How are we doing, lads? You okay?
Good evening, mate.
Very good. What an intro. They just keep getting better every week. I love it.
The best bit was James was messaging me prior saying, please don't say anything naughty in the one line that my mum and dad watching. Come on, mate. I can't believe you thought I would be that bad, mate. I'm never that bad. But no,
I've been out on the drink with you, Chris. I know how bad you are.
Come on, don't tell the viewers that, mate. Come on. You let the secrets out. We've got loads to cover tonight. Obviously, it's been a real mad week for Newcastle United, so we're going to get stuck in. Just before we do a little bit of housekeeping, if you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. It would really help the channel grow if you do. We're sitting on about 1793 subscribers, so we're only 7 off 1,800. So please click that button, get us over the 1,800, then onwards to 2,000. And like every podcast we do Mondays and Wednesdays, we are live. So jump in the comments, let us know what you think about the show. We've already got one comment in, I think, already, which is Vital Newcastle, who's saying hello. And hello to you too, mate. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, Mark's already clicked it twice like I did there because he delays. He likes to do this and catch me out. So now we've got loads to get through. So we're going to get stuck straight in. So the first topic we're going to get stuck into is the Palace review. Lynchman, I'm going to come to you. You were at the game, mate. Have you got over the Willock shove yet, mate? Or are you still foaming at the decision?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken me a little while to get over it. But look, the whole game, very, very frustrating. Look, it was a tale of two goalkeepers, Guaita and Pope. Nick Pope in particular was outstanding. I think he made 9 saves overall. And to think we got him for just £10 million in June, I mean, a brilliant piece of business. And arguably, some would probably say pound for pound, he might just be our best summer signing. But look, how we didn't win that game, I still can't quite get my head around it. You know, Isak, he's got to score when put through in the first half. I just think he tried to be a little bit too clever for his own good with the finish. He probably just had a little bit too much time to think, and he tried to do something a bit special, didn't he, in front of the Gallagher, and he just got it all wrong. But look, that home goal will come soon enough, I'm sure. I thought Willock had a couple of decent chances also, you know, the VAR decision aside, which he probably should have put away. Longstaff, a really great header from that corner, bit of a goalmouth scramble after that. Joe Lintonelli put it in. It just wasn't our day. And obviously it was compounded by that shocking, abysmal VAR decision, which was easily one of the worst decisions I've seen in a long, long time. What baffles me more than anything about the whole thing was the referee, Michael Salisbury, who by the way, he's only refereed 6 Premier League games in his whole career. He gives the goal. Then he's immediately told he needs to go and have a look at the monitor by Lee Mason in VAR, which is basically referee speak, referee lingo to you need to change your decision without actually saying it. Now, why he wasn't shown this replay from the East Stand, the camera angle from the East Stand, clearly showing Mitchell pushing Willock into the goalkeeper. For whatever reason, that wasn't shown. And the blame solely lies here at Lee Mason's feet. And it isn't the fault of VAR. The technology is there. It does its job. It's clearly the people who are using it who have no clue what they're doing. And I think now is the time that we need to get ex-pros involved with VAR, because these officials are making more and more mistakes on a weekly basis. And you just got to look at the West Ham game as well over the weekend. And it's totally ruining football, Chris. And it's a lot of these podcasts we're doing now, we're talking about the same thing. You guys did a brilliant show on Monday night, What's Going On. You went through the whole thing again there, and it just seems to be creeping up every single week now, doesn't it? I'm getting sick of it now. I really am.
Absolutely. And as Vital Newcastle said, Paul Willock needs spinal corrective surgery after that shove. I still can't believe VAR missed it. Yeah, Mark, just to get your take as well. I mean, we did talk about this on Monday, but I mean, again, the more you think about it, the more you start to go back and talk about it, just the worse it becomes again in your head. I mean, we spoke about it, you know, is it time for referees to be mic'd up so we can hear exactly why they're making these decisions? And, you know, they go running and hiding, don't they? Eddie Howe has to explain what he thinks about it. Patrick Vieira has to explain what he thinks about it. Of course, Vieira's going to say, oh, I think you got it right, because he's not going to say, yeah, you got it wrong. I would have thought more of Vieira if he did, but he's not going to do that. But is it time, Mark, to get a mic on these guys and we can hear exactly why they're making these decisions?
Why not? Why not? You know, you come back to, and it always comes back to the same thing in rugby. Whenever they talk through the video reference and that, they talk it through. You can hear what they're talking about. You can hear why they're looking at a decision, why they come to the decision that they make. Why don't we do that? It is ridiculous. And James hit the nail on the head there. That the fault on Saturday falls squarely on Lee Mason's head, because there's absolutely no reason why he hasn't got access to the angles. I mean, I was sitting watching it, and I could see that angle. It was being replayed as they were reviewing the decision. So they've got to have them. Why they're not choosing to use it or being given it, I don't know. It's just ridiculous. Mark's right. I argue we can't have the best league in the world when we have the worst officials, and we absolutely do. They're dreadful. There are very few that I would welcome to referee a game, because they've all got horrendous mistakes in them, and it just goes to show the weekend was just horrific for the number of decisions that were wrong, whether that was linesman, referee, VAR. If you go down to the Championship, goal line technology failed as well. Again, for Huddersfield, it was all over the place at the weekend.
Yeah, it was a really bad weekend for officials. Just some of the comments you guys are smashing in there. Jimmy's in the comments. He agrees with you, James. Absolutely. VAR was just another way of saying manipulation. I mean, we're going to come to a topic about this in a minute, because that is a growing feeling as well amongst the Newcastle fans. So Vital's saying that they either need to be mic'd up or made to face immediate full time. 100% agree with that. Like managers, they're absolutely fuming when, the risk of getting fined, by talking to, interviewers and telling them how displeased they are with it. I thought Eddie Howe was very eloquent, but he was still a bit miffed. You could see that. Stu's saying the good news is that no referee will believe anything that Lee Mason ever tells them again. Absolutely. We've got BT saying good evening all. Good evening to you too, BT. But just my take on it, lads. I mean, if it was just us, I know we're going to come on to this subject in a minute, so I don't want to cross over, but if it was just our club, then, we'd feel grounds to say, something's up against us here. But like Mark says there as well, it's happening to loads of clubs. You mentioned West Ham, James, as well. I mean, that is a shocking decision. I know they've come out and said they're going to say sorry, but, sorry ain't good enough. You're talking about, yes, we're early in the season right now, so maybe the only good thing is that these things have happened right now, because if this was to happen later on in the season, this could decide somebody's Premier League safety. This could decide the top 4 spot. This could decide the title. Do you know what I mean? And these are massive decisions that literally mean millions, hundreds of millions to football clubs. And it could even cost managers their jobs, James, as well, couldn't it? These are major decisions these guys are getting wrong. And it's just not acceptable, man.
Well, you look at where we are in the league right now. We're 11th. And if you look at some of the decisions, I don't want to cross over slightly, but we should be comfortably top 4, top 5 right now if we'd had a lot of these decisions go our favour. And it's not even about go our favour. It's not, 50-50. They were completely clear as day that we were wrong. Yeah. And that to Eddie Howe's credit, he speaks very well, doesn't he? He's very eloquent. He's not someone that, like a Steve Bruce type, to go on and moan and talk about possibly conspiracy theories and this, that, the other, which, to be fair, I know a lot of the fan base, and I don't blame them for saying that they are thinking that way, because that's how it's going. But maybe Eddie Howe needs to be a little bit more firm now in his post-match interviews and say, look, because if you think now referees going forward, Alex Ferguson, perfect example. Yeah, referees were shit scared to give a decision against him.
He was horrible at referees, Fergie, though.
He was. Maybe you can't get away with it in today's game. The game's a little bit different now, but maybe we do need to be a little bit more hyped up on the touchline, and to try and get in the and think. If I'm refereeing Newcastle this weekend, I cannot get anything wrong.
I mean, there's lots of pressure on that ref, Mark, at the weekend, isn't there? But I just before you get your comment there, Mark, I just want to take the opportunity, as James mentioned his name, I'd like to just tell any Chelsea Football Club fans listening that Steve Bruce is a great manager and a wonderful family man. So if you're looking for a new manager to replace Thomas Tuchel, look no further than the Baron of Bacon. He will steer you to safety in the Championship, possibly next season. So he's your man. Breaking Bacon, thank you, Mark. He's lined it up. you walked me to that one, Lynch, man. You walked me to that one, mate. But Mark just getting the take. I know we're going to cover West Ham later on, but there's massive pressure on the ref, isn't there? Because both of those teams are going into this game the weekend still absolutely pissed off about what happened to the previous fixture.
Yeah, they've released who it is, haven't they? And I've completely forgotten who.
I can't remember. I was just going to look it up. I can't remember who it was.
I read it yesterday and I can't remember now. But there will be, because both sides were victims of horrendous decisions. And I mean, you touched on before, just saying, at least it's happened this early in the season. But we're 3 seasons in to this. Craig
Pawson. Right. Is that not the guy who didn't give the penalty against Ryan Fraser for Man City? Is that not Craig Pawson?
That sounds familiar. Yeah, I think it is. So he's got form. So, but with what 3 seasons into this now, and it's still not anywhere near right. So I mean, I've no conviction that by the end of the season they'll be any better than they are now, regardless of whatever investigation they do into VAR. It's just this. We've said it 1,000 times. VAR in itself is great, but it's the people that are using it are absolutely useless. They just they genuinely haven't got a clue.
I mean, I know Manchester United will be pleased because Howard Webb's coming in, isn't he, to look after the referees soon. So Manchester United will be lining up the penalties and match saving points, I'm sure, because Howard Webb used to love giving them everything back in the old Fergie day, didn't he, mate? So I'm pretty sure that's coming up. But yeah, you're right, guys. It is disappointing, as the Lynchman says. We should be talking about football. We should be talking about mint goals and attacking football and great tackles and brilliant saves and whatnot. We're talking about a guy watching a TV screen who can't do his job properly, and it's so disappointing as football fans, because let's get it right. This product costs a lot of money, right? You're a season ticket holder, James. They don't get any cheaper every season. These are very, very expensive, vices in our life that we go and attend. And these guys need to get this right. If this was a business, James, as the Premier League always treats it like a business, right? You'd want your money back, wouldn't you? For seeing shit like that.
Well, yeah, and as I say, it's the talking points of games now it's always this. It's never about, as you say, great goals or match-winning performances or man of the match. It's always VAR now. And even when you watch Match of the Day, if you look back on the analysis, it's pretty much 50% of games now it's on VAR. And TalkSport the same, 5 Live the same, any kind of media outlet. And all the fan media were talking about the same thing. Everyone wanted VAR before it came in. I think 90-odd% of fans, you would say, were keen for it. And it worked very, very well at the World Cup, didn't it? I can't remember any problems, any issues there. It was all smooth. It all worked perfectly. But it's just getting worse and worse every week now, Chris. And you just think we're going to be doing the same show probably next week, and there'll be something else VAR related in the West Ham game that'll come up. Either us or them will get a bad decision, and that will decide the game. And it's you kind of run a league like that, Premier League, the biggest league in the world, the biggest franchise in the world, whatever it is. It's just not possible. It's worrying, really worrying times.
I was having Charlie Austin flashbacks there when you were getting on one day. Remember Charlie Austin's rant he had about the refs and they played Park Life over. That was some of the best internet editing I've ever seen. That we've got some of the comments coming in just before we move on. So Mark saying cabbage heat to Chelsea, so Potter gets the England job after the World Cup. Yeah, and then Vital saying about Potter to Chelsea is a bad move for him. He's too good to be treated the way he will be there. Just a little point on that, lads. I know we're a Newcastle podcast, but Brighton, I'll get your opinion on this, Mark, first. Brighton given Chelsea permission to talk to Potter. My take on this, I think it's a bad move for Graham Potter. I think that is a managerial graveyard, that. And I wouldn't go anywhere near that if I was Potter. But it's a big club and it's going to get his attention, mate. Can you see that happening? Potter going there?
I certainly think if I was him, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. But
yeah,
it is a challenge that he goes to manage a team in Europe. Big names, it is a step up from Brighton. Brighton have got something very, very good there, though. They're very, very well run. They've got some good players. It's an honest club, isn't it? It's an honest, pure club compared to Chelsea, yeah. I mean, and even when you look at some of the rivals sit and sit there and go, yeah, actually, we hate to say it, but they do it very, very well. They don't buy huge names. They're able to buy in and build a team, and that's exactly what he's done. And he's got them playing very good football. They're scoring goals. They are tight at the back most of the time, but they're not park the bus football. They control the ball a lot. It was always natural, I think, that Potter would take a next step. But Chelsea, I just think they haven't moved on from the Abramovich years, have they? I think it's the first sign of trouble, and the manager's gone. So it just seems very early on. But I mean, they were dismal last night. They really were. But I think it's a shame for Potter, because I genuinely think that Brighton were onto something.
I think there's a ceiling with Brighton, though, isn't there? You know, they're never going to be able to get them. How far can you go with them? I mean, if he got him top 4 this season, that would arguably be a bigger achievement since Leicester winning the Premier League a few seasons ago. It would be up there with that. Can you see Graham Potter not, if he's offered the job, turning it down? You know, these opportunities don't come along very often. If you've got ambition in the game, you want to be managing in Europe, the best players, the best that level. And I just think he's going to say yes, isn't he? I think all roads lead to that happening. I mean, people are saying Pochettino. I just don't think Pochettino's done anything since Spurs, has he? He hasn't done. I mean, fine, he was at PSG. Nobody does anything there. But who else is there? Zidane. I mean, it's got to be Potter. It's got to be Potter.
Yeah. Well, PK's sleeping in the comments to say that Potter's the Lynchman's fave. He's always been a fan of Harry Potter.
I love Graham Potter. I'd love him to get the England job. As you guys know, I want Southgate out as quickly as possible. But I just think right now, that's not going to happen. And who's going to be the next England manager? People will be talking about that. Hopefully not Eddie Howe. Let's not go down that road.
To be fair, Lynchman, I think you take Beatrix Potter over Graham Potter at the England job better than
I would.
That's how much Southgate. Sorry, Mark, what are you going to say there just before we move on?
No, I was going to say that the whole Poch thing, I think it's a difficult one, because obviously Spurs and Chelsea are, they're not exactly friends, are they? So I can't see him going somewhere like that now. He will look for a bigger job, but I just can't see that happening. I think Potter is going to be the one. So
that's an interesting comment by John, that he's the new Poch, massively overrated, good at a small club with a budget, but not a big club manager. Do you know what worries me about it, just before we move on? And this will be the last thing we'll say on the Potter thing, because we're not a Brighton podcast. I have shades of David Moyes going to Manchester United here. If he goes there, those players would be thinking, "Who are you? What have you done? I'm Aubameyang. I'm Havertz, I'm these guys. Who the fuck are you talking to me?" Same as Rio Ferdinand and everybody else did at David Moyes. And I think it could get really ugly really quickly for Potter. I hope I'm wrong, because I think he's a good manager and I hope he does well. But yeah, I wouldn't personally, if I was him, go anywhere near that job. But just moving on to something else that might cause some aggro in the comments as well. So we ran a poll on Twitter about this. There's a growing feeling in amongst the fan base. I think a lot of fan bases at the minute, but certainly ours, that there's an anti-NUFC agenda. So we're asking the question, is it fact or is it fiction? So just before we get the lads' opinions on this, the reason we kind of pulled this up, it's twofold, really. It goes off the back of Eddie Howe's comments in the transfer window, which is very un-Eddie Howe to say that, and that shows how frustrated he was about teams not doing Newcastle any favours. There's one price for them, one price for Newcastle. The clubs did say they were going to do that. I suppose, Mark, just start with you on this one. In your opinion, is there an anti-NUFC agenda? Is it either twofold within the other Premier League clubs and with the officials?
I think there's potentially within other clubs. I think there's definitely an angle of we don't want them to succeed, so we're going to try whatever we can to stop that happening. I think Eddie Howe hit that one on the head with a comment about the teams weren't willing to do them any favours. I think I argued on Monday, I don't see why any team should, but I get the feeling if there are deals in that have just about been done and then suddenly goalposts change and things, I guess that's always going to happen. Yeah. Within the Premier League, I guess there's probably a few that don't want it. At referee level, I said on Monday, I genuinely don't think the referees are clever enough to carry it out if there was an agenda. I don't think that they could. I just think we're looking at a group in that regard of just really, really poor at a poor standard. So it's not an agenda; it's just piss poor refereeing. With the clubs, maybe, like I say, I think there's probably a little bit of we don't want the money to come in, and we don't want another team to come in and succeed. So there's possibly a little bit there, but I don't think it's a I don't think it's an overall conspiracy, as some have kind of called it. I just think, yes, clubs don't want them to succeed because they don't want another challenger, and the referees are just crap.
Yeah, well, Vital's saying there he's always been in camp fiction, but it's getting harder and harder to deny. Now, Lynchman, you have been accused of being sensational by some members of the Evermore squad list who are in the comments hiding away there. I'm really keen to get your take on this, man. This would be when I think you completely change everybody's sensationalist view of you, and you just become very mature and understanding of this. Do you think there's an agenda against Newcastle, mate, or not? That's twofold, same as Mark, clubs and officials.
Well, I think if you look at the evidence, there's a strong enough argument now to suggest that there possibly is something in this. And look, I mean, there seems to be something going against us now in every single game. Coincidence? I mean, I don't know. The fact is, we don't have any proof of an agenda, as Mark said before, and we probably never will. But it's getting the point now that it is happening so frequently that we're having to have these conversations. And these aren't just small decisions, by the way. These are game-changing incidents that are costing us points after points after points. Now, this season alone, we've had 6 decisions, really bad decisions, go against us in the space of 6 games. The Wilson high foot against Brighton that led to a disallowed goal. A clear foul on Fabian Schär against Man City that would have won as a penalty. The shirt pull on Longstaff against Wolves, which was just unbelievable. 2 in the Liverpool game. Isak's second, in my opinion, was never offside. And of course, the extra 3.5, 4 minutes that was added on at the end of the game from absolutely nowhere. And then, of course, the worst of the lot, which we've just talked about at the start, the Willock one on Saturday. So you are now just going into games expecting these bad decisions to happen to Newcastle as a matter of course. And it's no different with Sunday with West Ham. As I said earlier, you can pretty much guarantee that we'll be talking about another one after that game. Look, I'm not going to sit here and categorically claim or suggest or say that there is a conspiracy against Newcastle. And this has been planned by the Premier League since, we had the takeover in October. However, I do think the state of officiating, refereeing is at an all-time low now. And unless this improves quickly, we are going to be sat here saying the same thing week in, week out. And I'm sure it's been the same for other clubs this season, to be fair. I can only speak for us because I follow us religiously and that's it. But as I said earlier at the start of the show, we're sat in 11th right now, and that isn't a fair reflection on our performances this season. We should be 3rd, 4th or 5th. I mean, it would be interesting if we go back and look at the decisions and the points we would have won. I haven't actually done that, where we would be sat on the table right now. I do think we probably would be 3rd or 4th. So yeah, I mean, going back to previously, possibly with other clubs, we all know about the Liverpool and Spurs situation when the takeover was happening. They were so vehemently against that. They would try to do anything to stop it. And as I say, the referee, and it's just a shambles. So that's just that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a couple of comments that guys have flown in there as well. If there was no conspiracies, Jody Jackson there, why did they only show one angle of the Willock push? Paul Gardner mentioned about the Stones pen against City, which obviously we didn't mention as well.
Sorry to butt in there, Chris. Has anyone explained why that angle on Willock wasn't shown? Has anyone come out and give an explanation for that yet?
I don't think they have at all, mate. No, I mean, Shearer was all over it, wasn't he? On Match of the Day, he was fizzing, and I mean, your point of Eddie Howe, Shearer had said he would like to have seen him kick a few more bottles over, I think, but I think we've said before in the comments as well. I mean, we don't want to believe that people are against us, but when you hear things like the Premier League turn around and say that the other clubs, 19 clubs, had a meeting about Newcastle and talked about it as a matter of course, and then you see the things in the transfer window, Eddie Howe coming out saying that it's one rule for us, one rule for everybody else. The clubs even indicating they would do that, leaking stories to the press, Mark. It's so easy to believe that this thing could carry a bit of weight, as the Lynchman says. I don't call anybody. I'm not saying that they've got Roswell posters and they're driving around in the fucking mystery machine, ripping off masks so people and see who the monster is. Like, but you can't blame these people for having these opinions, mate, can you? It's growing and growing every bloody week.
I think that the more you see, the more you start to buy into it, don't it? You have that. Was it like validation bias, isn't it, where things just keep going and going to back up your theory on it? And it is difficult to kind of get away from it because it happens more and more. You touched on that meeting there, and there was when was it 18 of the 20 clubs decided that they didn't want sort of the investment to come.
It was only City. I think it was only City that didn't do it, wasn't it? Yeah.
But even they only abstained. They didn't vote with it, and they didn't vote against it because obviously they didn't. I don't think they wanted to rock the boat too much because of where their money comes from. Yeah. Now that's relented, so that the sort of the direct investment stuff can happen, but with caveats.
Comment of the night from Jimmy there. Well done.
Jimmy's done it again. Well done, Jimmy. Well done. Superb. Area 51 Stadium.
Area 51, yeah.
Sorry, Mark. God, we're throwing you off, mate. Right. Sorry, Mark. Go on.
Totally. I forgot where I was now.
No, you're talking about the meeting about City abstaining from the meeting. Yeah, they only did that because of. Yeah.
You saw it then. You can see it in the transfer window by teams not wanting players to go to the club. Obviously, we touched on Maitland-Niles on Monday night when it was clear that he wanted the move, but Arsenal blocked it. You can understand to a point where a team in that regard sees Newcastle as a threat now. So, they as Geordie Jack says there, they are the biggest threat to the top six. So
even Klopp said that, didn't he, in an interview? He actually said that they're pretty much a top six side. And John's right. The same thing happened last season. Richie getting cleaned up by the keeper. Game at Liverpool. I remember that with the header coming in. Where I think it was Hayden got wiped out, didn't he? And they didn't do anything about it. So ever since the takeover and ever since the kind of resurgence of Newcastle United, there just seems to be this real growing feeling, doesn't there? Even amongst the most calm, rational fans, that something doesn't smell right here. You know, we might as well touch on it in this part as well.
For a start, we're talking about it, so that this, you know, it's got into us. So
well, exactly. You know, we don't like to play the conspiracy card, but I mean, one of the points there, Lynchman, just to get your take on this before we move on to the next subject. I mean, there's been some news coming out that James Maddison was desperate to come to Tyneside. And you look at the state of Leicester, you know, the way they're playing, you know, players want out, you know, Tillerman's wanted out, Maddison wanted out. Rodgers looks like he's almost playing for the sack. They're massively in debt. They're going to post the worst numbers of any Premier League club in terms of FFP. Again, with that, do you think it was because we were the only real suitor for Maddison and he wanted to come that Leicester dug their heels in again in this anti-Newcastle agenda to stop the lad coming to play for it?
Possibly. I mean, we're never going to have any proof of that, but you know, it's a valid argument to suggest that could be the case. I think the Fofana deal possibly affected that one, and I did say that on one of the shows. I think that the money they got for Fofana was enough, probably, to see them through a little
balance the books a little bit,
balance the books, what have you. And I think arguably Rodgers might have said, "Look, if you sell Maddison as well, I'm gone." So that could have been something in the background. And Maddison, as you know, slightly more important to Leicester, you could argue, in terms of his value's probably not as much in terms of what he's worth to the club. But in terms of from an attacking sense, I mean, he scored how many goals so far this season? He's been pretty much the only player who looks like he's going to do anything. But I'm sure we'll revisit that in January. I hope so. You know, I mean, I'm a huge fan of his, Chris. I know you're a very big fan, as you speak very highly of him in England international. Let's just hope we can revisit that one in January. But look, I think going back to what we did do, if someone had offered me Isaac or Maddison, I would have taken Isaac every single day of the week.
Yeah, I think we needed them. I'm just laughing at Vital's comment there. He's noticing Mark's little graphics he's sliding. It's always nice to be appreciated, Mark, isn't it? Behind the scenes of the little graphics you're doing, mate. Absolutely. But no, it's a weird one. I think it's the more bad decisions that go on, Mark, just to kind of finish this up before we move on. I think might be getting joined by our fourth horseman in a minute. He's just I think he's just getting his shit together, so I'm just waiting for a pop up. But just to finish this kind of subject, Mark, the more bad decisions, the more focus on mistakes, certainly regarding Newcastle United, the more this conspiracy is just going to grow and grow, isn't it, mate? It won't go away with these bad decisions week after week.
Like I say, it comes back. Everything like that will play on it because it feeds into the bias of that thought. So if you believe that there is a conspiracy, every decision is going to prompt you to build on that. You won't look at. I guess you look at the weekend and think, well, how many clubs were affected by poor decisions? It wasn't just Newcastle. Newcastle was horrendous. But
so was West Ham, as you say. So was West Ham.
Exactly. You know? So it's not just one club. There does seem to be the bias towards the top six. I will agree with that completely. I do think there was not a bias, but a fear of giving decisions against them at times. But yeah, you're right. You get that confirmation bias by just looking at the decisions that affect your club, and if that backs up what you think, then it's just going to build that completely.
Absolutely. Just a couple of comments before we move on. So Peter's saying we would have been sixth, just going back to what you were saying, Lynchman, about the decisions going our way, would have been in a much higher league position. And John is saying that in terms of Leicester, they need Maddison. Without him, they'll be close to the bottom three. They haven't got a deep enough squad. He's right. But, I think Maddison will play as well as he can for a couple of months. And if we can tie up a deal for him in January, so it's ready to rock, a bit like we did with Trippier behind the scenes, then that would be an unbelievable piece of business for the club in January. Jason Brown's in the comments, he's saying the Willock incident was not just a poor decision, it was inexplicable. He's right. There's no explanation for that. There really, really isn't. And Stu's saying, I don't think we should know who the VAR is. The decision is either right or wrong, and the referee should take full responsibility. I have seen that punted a few times, Mark, just to get your take on it. The ref surely has to have authority on the pitch to say, no, that's my decision. Michael Oliver did that, didn't he? But he's more senior than this other referee was. The Lynchman mentioned his name before. I can't remember. I just call him useless. That's what he's called now.
Michael Salisbury.
I to be fair, I agree with that comment to a point, because Michael Oliver's the most senior referee now in the Premier League, isn't he? He's the most experienced. He's probably the biggest name there. So if he's on VAR and you've got somebody like Salisbury who's refereeing, that becomes really difficult. If he goes, do you know what? I'd like you to challenge, look at your decision again. You're not going to ignore him, and you're going to be swayed by that. And I think the fans are then swayed by the fact that you've got a more senior referee in the background. I just agree, if you keep that referee anonymous, or have a panel in the background so it's not just one person looking at it, you then don't know who's made the decision. You could have a lot of referees or a lot of ex-players, anybody that's involved in the game that's in there looking at those decisions, and then it's an effort between whoever's looking at that decision, and it's an unnamed, and then, like you said, it's down to the referee at the end of the day to go yes or no, that's my decision, regardless of who that person is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll move on from this. We could be rattling about this all night, to be fair, as unjust as we feel about being shafted by these horrendous decisions week after week. But there was another subject, Mark, just to, I suppose, get your take on this first, because you've done a fair bit of research on this story, being the Lynchman, possibly not as much as you. But there has been a new... So the PIF have got their fingers in many pies, and they've got their finger in another pie here that they're looking to do, which is a huge investment in an airline company, Mark, isn't it? Just tell us a little bit about this and what you think it might do in terms of sponsorship for the club.
So, yeah, the report, was it yesterday, came out and said that they were going to put in about $30 billion into a new national airline called RIA or RIA that was going to compete with the likes of Emirates and Qatar Airways out of Riyadh. And therefore, it is another arm of their investment fund to draw in money into the country in terms of tourism and things like that. I think they're targeting a lot of the religious tourism and things, but it's an avenue that potentially opens up for sponsorship for the club. So shirt sponsors, exactly like Manchester City have got, PSG have got as well, that opens up that door to more commercial revenue through the door, which is a huge thing for Newcastle, because it's something that they've not had. We've talked about that before. So you can bring in much more money, far more than you probably have for the likes of a shirt sponsor like Funny. You're going to get more money in there. It's going to have to go through the fair value sort of process with the Premier League, but it's going to be worth a lot more than the likes of Funny or anybody like that can bring to the table. And like I say, the more and more that they do things like this, it just gives you the possibility of more and more commercial revenue at the club, which opens up the door to higher wages, to bigger transfers and things.
Lynchman, I can almost smell the piss in Miguel Delaney and Oliver Holt's pants at the thought of a Saudi-led airline company sponsoring Newcastle United's white and green shirt. Are you all in favour for this, mate? If we get a piece of that said pie, mate, you must be in favour of that, surely.
100%. Absolutely, sign me up to this. This is massively exciting news. Really exciting for the club, the owners, the fans. I mean, if these guys say they're going to do something, they don't do it in half measures. And if they're wanting to compete with, as Mark said before, Emirates and Etihad Airways, they have the clout, they have the finances, they have the resources. They could blow them out of the water. Look, of course, already the speculation as it is now, what we're doing now, it started over a potential sponsorship deal with the club. It makes sense on all fronts, doesn't it? We all know if this did go through, as again Mark said, the impact on FFP for us would be incredible. We've talked about that on so many shows, the transfer shows we've done. We have struggled in recent windows. The money's there. It's just the FFP is stopping certain deals going through. And I think from what I was reading earlier, the airline is scheduled to launch at the end of this year. So that's, a couple of months away. And again, Mark said there, RA, I think the R stands for Riyadh. So that'll be Riyadh International Airways. It's supposed to be called. And yeah, absolutely excellent news. And we all know, as you said, Chris, there are going to be objections to this from the rest of the Premier League, the so-called top six. You can guarantee the likes of Liverpool and Spurs, who tried everything they could to stop the takeover going through, as I mentioned earlier, they will object to this. They'll say it's unfair, it's bringing the game in disrepute and all of that shite. So we're going to have that to look forward to. But, these guys are going to have the best legal team, the best lawyers around. This, hopefully, it wouldn't get to a point where it did go to court if there were these disputes. But at the end of the day, just what Man City do, you just keep taking them to court and threatening lawsuits, and people just walk away. People go away. So hopefully this will go through, and we'll have a really big kitty come the summer of next season to again go out and attack the window. Yeah,
no, absolutely, mate. I totally agree. It's for me going forward with it. Looking at the club, as was said, Mike Ashley was almost lauded for putting us in a good financial position, as in, we didn't spend loads of money on players. But what a lot of these media outlets fail to talk about, and to be honest with you, it's almost fell upon the fan-led media to push this narrative, is that one thing Mike Ashley did was starve us of corporate sponsorship, of corporate deals that did exactly what Mark's just touched upon there. We were light years ahead of people like Spurs and Everton and guys like that, when we had Shepherd here and stuff like that, and they just completely leapfrogged us and ran 100 miles away when Mike Ashley was here, because the only thing he did was use Newcastle United to feather his own nest and siphon money back through his own business. Now, the media choose not to talk about that. They just say, oh, yeah, when Newcastle fans did like him and, he didn't spend a lot of money in the window and blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't that at all. He had this unbelievably marketable product that he just completely neglected. And all he could see was how many trainers he was going to sell for people seeing Sports Direct signs around the world, Mark, wasn't it? And just, for me, this is a total new era. These are proper business guys, as the Lynchman says, proper business guys. They have connections. They know what deals they need to do, and they're going to get as many commercial deals at Newcastle United as they possibly can. And it can only be good for the acceleration of the project, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think look at Ash's comment there. Ashley took almost free sponsorship. No one gave a shit. Nobody did. Nobody batted an eyelid. The fact that he pillaged the club basically in that regard. It was all for his own personal game. It was nothing about the club. It was nothing about the fans of the area. It was all about his brand. That was it. Getting this right, we know that, and James said before that they don't go into anything half-hearted. They're going to do something. They go all in. Their ambition for the club included in that too. So things like this will just open the door, like I say, to increased revenues coming into the club. And when you talk about what that deal could be, when it goes to fair value, they've only got to look at Manchester City, and whatever they do would ideally have to match exactly what they've got. I mean, they can't argue that it's worth any less because of what's already out there in the data bank that they've got of these deals.
Yeah, this is an interesting question, Lynchman, just to get your take on this, and also just to add another question from my side. So you can take Stu's question and then this one. So how long will it be at the club, and do you think it's only inevitable that a move away from St James's Park to a new stadium will be on some kind of business plan that we haven't seen as fans? I know that's a big question to ask.
Well, the first one, I'll answer that. How long do you think this ownership will be at NUFC? As long as the Premier League is a global brand. So that could be infinitum. As long as the Premier League and what it is now and the TV deals that they continue to get with the likes of Sky, BT, Amazon, all, the American stations, Fox, etc., as long as that money's coming in and their brand in terms of what they're wanting to do with their country and their status, I can see them being here for a very, very long time. I mean, how long have the Man City owners been there now? You look, is it 2008? I think.
Yeah,
was it 2008? So
is that
that's coming up
years?
to 15 years, and they aren't looking to go anywhere or sell up. So yeah, I can see this being a very long and fruitful relationship with these guys, and hopefully we're looking at 30, 40 years, and hopefully many trophies in that time. And the second part of the question, in terms of a new stadium, my head says yes. I think we probably will move eventually. My heart says no.
I think we
won't. I would love to stay at St James's Park, but I'm being very selfish there because I'm lucky to have a season ticket, and I won't be going anywhere in a hurry. But I know for a lot of people out there like yourselves who are desperate for tickets, the only really way around this to settle this demand would have to be a new stadium. I mean, yes, you could expand the current St James's Park in its form. You're not going to be looking at that much in terms of additional capacity. If you're wanting to be, considered a global superstar club, the likes of what Manchester United and Real Madrid and Liverpool are, you would have to argue you would have to get a stadium of around about 90 to 100,000. And unfortunately, where we are right now, that's just not possible.
Yeah, it was almost Ashley's parting shot. Just a couple of comments before we move on, because we're just waiting for Audie to jump in. He's just struggling in traffic, so he should be here in a minute. We've got 100%. We'll move to a stadium, says Vidal. We are so boxed in where we are, as you just said there, Lynchman as well. It was Ashley's parting shot, wasn't it? Really. John's saying they don't like to be outdone. With them having a rivalry with Man City owners, I think they'll go above and beyond at some point, absolutely, and they'll make Newcastle huge over the world. It's weird because we're already huge over the world. But I just think that we had the owner that was just so, self-centered in terms of what the club could do for him. It was almost like he bought the club when he was pissed at a poker game or something, and then went, oh, crap, I've got this club now, I don't know what to do with it. Jody Jack saying Leazes Park trustees and council more open to talk since they are low on funding. That's a fair shout, Jack. There might be something to do. I mean, obviously, I think a big thing for the stadium and for the football club and the region is this upcoming Sam Fender gig. Yes, he's a local lad. It's all great and everything else, the nostalgia of it all. But from a pure commercial sense as well, Sam Fender's gig will bring people staying in the hotels, will bring people to the pubs, people to the restaurants, all sorts of stuff. The city itself will see how Newcastle and how that stadium could thrive on regular concerts, and increasing that capacity would, encourage acts to come, bigger acts to come, James, wouldn't it? And I think that could potentially make the council, as Jack says, maybe have a little chat about stuff and say, do you know what? That's worth looking into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what was the last concert we had at St James's Park? Was it Kings of Leon, I think it was. And we're going back there 7, 8, 9 years or something like that. I mean, we've got this incredible venue there with 52,000 capacity. Why have we not been having concerts every summer? It makes no sense. But again, we didn't have the right business people in place. We do now. Yeah. And we've got so much to look forward to. I mean, did you guys manage to get Sam Fender tickets? I think they went on sale today, didn't they? Did you manage to get any? Or
no, I know the missus was looking at it, but I don't think we did, unfortunately. Maybe something to revisit if we can get one later on. But
I think he's had another date, hasn't he? So he's doing the 2 dates now. Yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get myself a couple, because I was unsuccessful today as well.
Oh mate, I can't believe your inside contacts. I thought you'd be on stage with a saxophone next to Johnny Blue at you, mate.
I think I need to make a few more calls.
I'm going to say that the last concert I remember there was Ed Sheeran did St James's, didn't he? What was it, about 4 years ago?
Do you know what? I totally forgot about that. Forgot about that. You're right there, Mark. You're right.
If you can get names of that and it's full. And that's the kind of revenue you can build on. And you're right, it brings people to the area that wouldn't normally come, because you only get limited numbers that come for football games that come from outside the area in reality. So if you can get 50,000 in there or whatever to come in for concerts that will come from outside the area, bring their money into the area, then that's great for the area and for the club.
Superb. Just a comment from Jody Jack before we'll welcome the Lord of Ord for his Evermore debut. He's got here in the end, but Jody Jack saying, showing his age, he went to Queen at St James's Park. Listen, Jody Jack, that's one of the best bands of all time, mate. So don't you worry about that, mate. What a concert that is. But let's say a big welcome, everybody, to the Lord of Ord making his Evermore debut. How you doing, bud? You all right?
Slightly stressful evening, mate. I didn't expect it to be like this, but yeah.
Don't worry about it. I've been getting messages off Audie as the show's been going on, everyone. And if you ever want a snapshot into what it's like to be a dad trying to do a podcast, that is it. Pretty much, mate, isn't it? God bless you, mate. God bless you. But listen, it's good timing, mate, because we're going to jump straight in for the next subject. It's Anderson time. You know, there's been loads of talk about the young lad, but we're all dead excited about him as Newcastle fans. He went away on loan to Joey Barton's Bristol Rovers. He come back, you know, left a boy, come back a man. He's looked so good in the small cameos that he's when did you get Pep on? Superb. He's not got a snazzy jumper on, mate, so he's not quite Pep yet. But,
too much grey as well.
That's what it is, mate. But
Geordie Pep Guardiola. Brilliant.
Pet Guardiola, we'll call him. Pet Guardiola, that'd be good. But just start with you on this one, Odie, about Anderson. I mean, we're all dead excited about him, mate, but maybe is it premature? Do you think it's time for a young lad to come in from the start, mate, or do you think that's a bit premature?
I think West Ham away might be a bit premature for him, especially if, as is rumoured, there's a chance that St Maximin might be back for West Ham. I think probably the biggest thing, if I'm being really honest, the biggest thing that's going to be the decider is what's the other quality of what we've got. Is he better than Miggy? I think he probably is. Could we then switch Maxi to the right? Yes. But would we be better off saving him for Bournemouth a week later? I think that's probably the more likely outcome rather than starting him away at West Ham, where they're a team that seem to be finding their feet a bit more. They had a shaky start of the season, but they seem to have found their feet a little bit. And my worry is that possibly that's not the situation to send him into. I know Bruce gave him his debut, didn't he, off the bench against Arsenal away in the FA Cup?
He did. And then he put him in cryostasis for about 4 months after that, after he looked all right. Standard Bruce.
Yeah, but that's probably the situation we're in, isn't it? Where we've got to judge ourselves really is like, do we want to risk him and him having a bad game and knocking his confidence? I don't know about anybody else, but I thought when he came on against Palace, he made a massive difference compared to Fraser. I thought his movement, his carrying of the ball, he really got at Ward, and he was also looking to snap back a little bit more than Fraser. That's not a dig on Fraser. I just think he's potentially a better player than Fraser is.
Now, Lynchman, getting your take on this, and I'll be very mindful because I know you and Ryan Fraser have walks in the park together, so I don't want to upset him too much, mate. But do you think Audie's got a point there? Do you think, you know, and I mean, I thought he looked awesome against Palace. I thought he didn't look like a 19-year-old kid for me. He looked like a seasoned veteran, just ready to run at a Premier League team and change the game for us, mate. Were you impressed when he come on equally like Audie was?
He was outstanding. Look, I know he played on that left-hand side, did he, when he came on against Palace, and he looked very, very comfortable there, as Audie said. But I'd like to see him start in the midfield, preferably with Bruno and Joe Linton. I think he would make that position his own if he's given that chance. Eventually he will. Again, I don't think, knowing Eddie Howe as I do, and I'm not criticising Eddie Howe here, far from it, but he does tend to err on the side of caution. And he does have his favourites, and I would be very, very surprised if I saw Anderson's name on the team sheet come 1 p.m. Sunday, barring a couple more freak injuries. But look, I've been singing this guy's praises for a long time now, Chris. You know that I saw something special in him when he made his first team debut, as already mentioned before, in the FA Cup. I thought he was outstanding. I think he was 17, 18 years old then. But he's done everything right so far. Going out on loan to Bristol Rovers has really improved his game. You know, it's not easy at that level. You've just got to see what Tranmere did was a few weeks ago in the Cup. That is a really tough physical league, and it toughened him up. You can see he's built up over the summer. He looks solid now, more muscular, and he's more comfortable on the ball than he's ever looked. And he always wants it. He always wants to be involved. He always wants to affect the game, get involved. Look, I've never really been a big Joe Willock fan. I think you guys know that. I don't think Willock offers a great deal. I think he's overrated. I think he can go missing in games sometimes. Personally, if it was me, and I'm not the manager obviously here, but personally, if it was me, I would be starting Anderson over Willock every opportunity given.
Yeah, I think Mike agrees in the comments there. Michael is just saying as well that he has corrected this Willock and Willock. It sounds like a solicitor's firm, that Willock and Willock. But yeah, I think he's saying that he would rather have him in ahead of Willock too. Mark, just to get your take on this, we spoke about this, and we're probably going to do a special on how Joe Willock's game has changed from just being a goal scoring midfielder to an all action midfielder. But I think Joe Willock looks knackered, Mark. I really do. I think he needs a rest, and you've got this kid with the energy that he's got and the ability on the ball. I think I do agree with Audie. West Ham is like a really hard game away from home, a tough, physical game, tackles flying and all that kind of stuff. Do you think the lad's ready for that? Or again, are you kind of on Audie's wavelength that maybe just keep him on the bench for a game like that and then rest him for Bournemouth and bring him in against them?
I do think he would do a job if he did come in against West Ham. I don't think he would be overawed by the occasion of it or the team that he's playing against. I just think you have a very settled three, and I think that works in your favour against West Ham, who are finding their form a little bit. But I also think he probably gives you a little bit more further forward anyway. So I'd probably like to see him playing further, either on the left and switch Maxi over or playing it in one of those positions. It just gives you a little bit more. You look at what he did at the weekend when he came on. He's only on the field for 20 minutes. He had one key pass and one big chance created in that time. He just looked like he was there to make a difference. And I think you can do that again against West Ham when the game's getting on a little bit, when players are starting to get a little more leggy. He can come on and cause havoc at that point, and then maybe look, like Audie says, to come in against Bournemouth, who, to be fair, have been pretty dire this season, and really find his feet in that game and kick on from there. Like I say, I think he would do a job if you played him in midfield. I wouldn't argue with it, because he does give you some real creativity from that point. But that West Ham midfield is pretty damn good at times, and I think if you're going to come into that, it's going to be difficult, and he's probably going to spend an awful lot of time doing a job that he's not probably wanting to do, which is get forward more. I think he's going to do a lot more defensive work that we've seen Willock do. I think it's one of the things that Willock has had to change about his game. He's gone from being that almost a 10 where he's breaking into the box late and playing in behind a striker to playing a much more defensive role, which he's lost a lot of his attacking threat.
I think that's what John's...
I'm saying drop Willock for Anderson, but Willock scored that worldie against West Ham last season, didn't he? He was probably the best player on the pitch. So what do I know?
That was Joe Willock Mark 1 kind of a thing. But I think John's saying the same thing there, isn't he, about Willock being the number 10, really, he's attacking midfielder. Audie, just to go back to you on this one, mate, I think the big tester really for Anderson will be is if Maxi's not fit, or if he's only fit to start on the bench. Do you bring him in and play him out wide? Because I personally think Howe fancies him out wide as opposed to through the middle, from what looks like he's brought him in as.
Yeah, sorry, I've seen a couple of comments that we've been doing that there about people saying replace Longstaff, replace Willock. I think, when he's coming in, he seems to be the type of player who gets the ball and runs at people, which, while great in midfield, and I think he potentially, who knows, he could be a centre midfielder. Eddie Howe definitely seems to think that he's made to be a wide player. He's picked him wide left or wide on the right. I think it was against Tranmere, and wide on the left against Palace. So he clearly thinks he's a replacement potentially for a Miggy or a Fraser. Personally, I mean, the clips I've seen from him, Bristol Rovers, I wouldn't say I became an avid Bristol Rovers fan at the end of last season, but the clips we saw in Bristol Rovers, he seemed to be getting a goal or an assist pretty much like every game when he was there. And I know he scored the goal that sent them up, didn't he? And Barton was effusive in his praise about how good he was, helping the lad, keep his feet on the floor. But my concern about where you play him in terms of West Ham is Miggy wants to be a 10, Willock wants to be a 10. Some people are saying Anderson wants to be a 10, but we don't play a system with a 10. So for me, if Maxi's not fit, I would say it's likely to be, I agree with James, Eddie Howe will likely pick the same 11 as he picked to start against Crystal Palace. If nobody else is fit, I think it'll be the same 11. If Maxi and Bruno were fit, they'd come straight back in. I don't think there's any doubt about that. There's a part of me that thinks actually you could almost do with Maxi what you did against Burnley, where you could say, right, this lad's going to get your slot 70 minutes, right? Come on, then you've got 20 minutes to come on and show us how fit you are and how good you are and how fired up you are. give Maxi a little bit of a scare. There might be somebody else who's got his place, because I tell you what, that'll sharpen him up pretty quick if he thinks there's a chance this kid could come in and take his place.
Absolutely. And there'll be a few players on their toes. I bet you're watching Anderson in training thinking, Christ, this lad's okay. There's Jody Jack saying there, they're talking about moving Miggy around. I mean, it's funny with Miggy. There's another comment there about Miggy doing so much for the team. And he always looks way better, pressing and everything else. And I know we spoke about this, but I mean, the weird thing is for me and Mark had a chat about this briefly, didn't we? On Monday, I can't remember if it was on camera, off camera now, Mark. But we with Trippier being so good at right back and Targett being so good defensively at left back, right? Do we really need to rely on Miggy Almiron's desire and willingness to run back? Would it not be better? Either one of you can take this. Would it not be better to have a player that uses the ball better, finds that pass more often than not? Has the intelligence to pick a ball like Anderson showed in his cameos, or get in the box and become a goal threat, rather than just running up and down like the roadrunner on speed, like Miggy does quite often, as either one of you can jump in and take this. But for me, I'd rather have the quality on the pitch from the start, get in front in a game, and then bring somebody on who can run at tired legs.
I think if you've got that quality in that position, then it makes the defensive part of the game a lot easier, because you're not giving the ball away as much. As we've seen with Miggy 1,000 times, he gets down that right-hand side, he gets stuck because he won't use his right foot, and he has to turn back and bring another player into it, rather than either drive into the box or cross the ball with his right foot. So I think if you've got somebody with a little bit better quality in that position, it brings it brings the best out of that area, and it allows the other players just to be a little bit more comfortable in that position. Whereas Trippier doesn't have to do as much defensively, because the player in front of me isn't giving the ball away as much and is using it a lot more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll just move away from the Anderson subject then. We'll quickly finish up with a bit of a look towards West Ham. Just start with you on this one, Lynchman. Obviously, West Ham, we've had a nice bit of rest in comparison to the last week that we've had. It'd be a tough game. They're foaming. We're still foaming after rubbish refereeing decisions. How do you see this one going, mate? Do you think we'll get a win down at the London Stadium or not?
I think we've got to be brutally honest here, guys. Our away performances this season haven't been particularly great. I don't know how we came away with a point against Brighton. I thought we were really poor that day. Again, Wolves, we made that one difficult for ourselves. Yes, we were very, very good against Liverpool in the first half, but we did look a bit suspect in the second. We are a home team at the minute. We look almost unbeatable at St. James's. I think I read somewhere that only Liverpool and Man City have beaten us at home since Eddie Howe took over. So I'm not massively confident going into away games at the moment, and especially, as already mentioned before, the injuries we have. There's still question marks over the fitness of Maxi and Bruno. Wilson won't play. This game's going to come too soon for him. And you do look at the squad depth we have right now. It's not massively impressive. I mean, if you bring it on Jacob Murphy and Chris Wood with 20 minutes to go trying to get your goal, you've got problems. Look, West Ham have had a really poor start of the season, third bottom of the league already, struggling for goals, struggling for confidence. And, they do play on Thursday night in Europe, so they will have one eye on that game. These are the games that you've got to be winning if you want to push for a top six finish this season. You have to take advantage of the opposition's poor form, the way they're playing, and you've got to be ruthless. But look, I think this will all depend on Bruno and Maxi. If they're fit and they start, we win this game. If not, I think it'll be another draw.
Absolutely. Well, I just hope that Wilson can get on the bench and win that bet with Antonio, because that's a great bet they've got going on there. But I just had to flick my light on everybody because I looked like I was presenting Ghost Watch for a minute, so I didn't just have an idea there where the light went off. But Audrey, just getting your take on the match. Obviously, talking a little bit about Isak as well. Obviously that massive chance that he had against Palace. He's obviously going to play against West Ham. Do you think you would have learned his lesson from that a little bit, mate? Do you think if he gets one-on-one again, he's just going to bend it in the far corner rather than a little scoop shot?
I think it's, I won't hide away from the fact that I think most people in here know that I'm a massive Isak fan. His 2 goals against Liverpool. Sorry, well, he did score twice against Liverpool, but
he did. Should have stood.
The second goal, if you want to see someone ice cool under pressure at the Kop end, doing that to 3 Liverpool defenders is incredible. I think he will have learned his lesson. I do think he was a little bit unlucky in it. I think he actually, that touch that he took right on the D was just that little bit too heavy that it gave the keeper an easy out. I can come here. Whereas if he takes a bit of a softer touch there, keeper can't go anywhere because he doesn't know if he's going to bend it or try and lift it over him. I do think, however, that probably will try and go around the keeper next time rather than just lift it over his shoulder. West Ham are going to be fired up, obviously, especially their home fans, because they're going to feel like they've been diddled out of 2 points at Chelsea, a point at Chelsea, which they were. I think the issue with the away form, I agree with James. I thought we're really poor against Brighton, like from what I saw, but haven't seen how well Brighton started the season. I mean, we weren't like Man United against Brentford. We weren't getting pulled around all over the place. The difficulty I think we've got with West Ham is they are a team that when they get into form, they do seem to go on big runs. Luckily, obviously, their confidence might have taken a bit of a battering, but my worry is that Declan Rice, 2 or 3 years ago, seems to have given a big setback to Longstaff's career by leaving one on him, and he's never been the same player since. And I do think their midfield, like James says, it's a really strong midfield. They've actually, Antonio, as much as he's a great support, they actually seem to have got stronger by playing off him. So like getting him to go into the channels and getting the midfield to push on past them, like the Lanzinis, etc., to go on past them and get the ball that way. So I'm not confident, but I can't believe that we'll play as badly as we did against Brighton. I thought we were okay against Wolves, but we were missing Wilson. I think that made a massive difference with not having a centre forward. One moment of magic from Maxi was needed, and luckily we got it.
Yeah. What do you fancy? Do you fancy a draw already, or do you think a defeat?
I'll take a draw right. If you offer me a draw right now, I'll take it. But if you can keep, if you've just got to keep picking up points away from home. I do think it was 2 points dropped at the weekend. I will say that. As much as I think we've made a brilliant start of the season, I thought it was 2 points dropped at the weekend. I thought they were there for the taking. And in the end, Nick Pope probably saved us from getting beat with that save from Edouard and later on in the second half. I felt after the non-goal, after the goal that wasn't given, I felt we really dropped off in intensity-wise. And I think that's something Howe's going to have to work on. Why? And I felt it was the same at Liverpool, actually, 65, 66, 67 minutes. Why we're not kicking on after that? Is it just because we're missing Bruno taking control of the game and being able to move the ball around, which I think is a massive miss? Or is it that we're not quite yet able to outplay and outthink these teams who are on roughly the same level as us? I'll stick my neck out and say one more.
Very wise words from Pep Guardiola there, everybody. So absolutely superb, man. What a debut he's made. Mark, just coming to you. I'll tell you what worries me a little bit about this game before you offer your take is Jared Bowen has been very quiet so far this season. I'm just a little bit worried that this will be the game where he suddenly bursts back into life and scores many fantasy league points in this game, mate. What's your take on it?
It's always the danger, isn't it, that one of them will catch fire in that regard, and it becomes an issue. They were much better against Chelsea at the weekend. Yeah. They've been pretty dire for the rest of the season. Their only win in the league was against Villa, and they were pretty awful in that game as well. It was only by the fact that Villa were equally as bad that they came away with that with 3 points. But they've been pretty average and haven't looked a real threat. They've looked suspect at the back. As John says, they're very average at the back, and if we attack them the way we did in those two games, they might be in trouble. Well, they brought in Kehrer from PSG, haven't they? And I guess he was brought in as a big name defender to come in that regard, but he's looked average and looks at a player that you can get at. So targeting that side of the defence is probably a thing to sort of aim at. I guess it's going to depend on who's playing, isn't it? If Bruno and Maxi are back, I think then it becomes. I'd lean towards Newcastle getting the result. I think if they're still missing, I think it's a much more of a close battle and probably ends in a draw. But you take advantage of the fact that they've been in poor form again, and use that to your advantage, because it's you have to. Gone are the days where you have a team rock up against Newcastle and where you've got a striker out of form or a team out of form and say, "Oh, come and play us. We'll give you can get your form back against us." So it's going to be. I think it's going to be a difficult game. They always are against West Ham. It's. Like I say, depend on who. I think if the two are back, certainly I think I'd go 2-1 Newcastle. If they're missing, I'd lean on a 1-1. I'm very similar to you, mate, to be fair, and I think Vital's just hit the nail on the head there. If either one of them come back, I think Bruno's probably more key, if I'm honest, as we just touched before. I think Audie touched on it. Bruno in that side, I think Joe Linton looks a better player when Bruno's alongside him. I think the rest of the team just look more confident when Bruno's in the middle of the park. He has came out on Twitter and he's kind of made indications that he is going to be fit, or that's his target, that's his goal. I don't think you would be
saying that if he didn't feel he was in for a good shout for it. I think Eddie Howe even said he was close to the Palace game but didn't want to risk him. So I do think we'll definitely see Bruno. I think Maxi could be touch and go. Half the time Maxi plays, he's wrapped up in more bandages than bloody Tutankhamun, and so you never know when he's injured or not, really. So potentially Eddie Howe might keep him as an impact player, and possibly Anderson might put a game time. Yeah, the Paqueta sideline, Mike, it's a good job you jumped over the comments there. This whole Paqueta sideline thing, we never wanted to sign the bloke. Him and Bruno are good mates. I'm sure they'll have a Swifty after the game or whatnot. And I've seen the funny clips of the is it Marco Reus and Lewandowski, kissing lovely looks that they had against Dortmund and Munich. But to be fair, Paqueta will want to win for West Ham. Bruno will want to win for us. And I think Joe Linton will probably go through him like a jealous boyfriend in the first 10 minutes anyway. So I don't think it really matters, Mike, to be honest. But I'm very similar to Mark. I think if those two come in, we might just edge it. But I think a draw, as Odie says, would probably be a fair result. We're all sick of drawing games, but I think a draw at the London Stadium against West Ham, who are a good side, isn't a bad result to really have. And then we'll go against Bournemouth again, and you've got to fancy us to get a result there. But I think that's us pretty much wrapped up, lads, for this show. Thank you so much to everybody in the comments who have jumped in. It really helps the channel flow. We really enjoy that. And as I mentioned at the start, if you do like what we do, please click that like and subscribe button. It's just next to Pep Guardiola there and the lynch pad. If you can just smash that button, hit the bell so you don't miss any of the videos. And just before you go, Audie, great debut, mate. Seamlessly slipped in there. I'd expect nothing else from the number one Pep Guardiola impersonator of the Northeast, mate. So well done.
Well, thanks very much for having us. And let's hope Newcastle win at the weekend, so we've got something good to talk about next week.
Fingers crossed. That's a great way to sign it off. So let's keep supporting our team of Core United, lads, and we'll catch you next time. See you later.